kind of start on it. It's a minor issue here. All right, moving on. And again, Steve, I'm really interested to see how you guys are working on this in the denominational level. How does your community make decisions which affect the whole? And how are dissenting points of view addressed? And going on with that, in what ways does the community ensure that decisions are actually carried out? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but church communities sometimes make a decision and then make sure it's not carried out. So, like, how do you do that? How do you make a decision? How do you address dissent? And how do you actually follow through with it?
Chris, I can go first on that, I think. Was she ready?
Well, one of the things we traditionally there's been a lot of, and this is a method that's also changing, I think, now. Okay. But it's basically been one congregational meeting, everybody together, and try to talk about some of these things, and it really was generally once a year.
Right. Okay.
Now there's some other ones if something comes up where it is everyone together, and it typically revolved around voting on something, and I think that's probably that may be more of a general conference background. I'm not sure if Old Mennonite was as focused on that, but it ends up whatever the issues are, and then coming to a vote. The problem is with that, in some ways that's okay. In a lot of ways, there's not a whole lot of accountability, or at least there wasn't in the past. It's very easy to vote a certain way if you don't have to be responsible.
Right.
Because you're not standing up. It could be by a ballot.
Okay.
Some of that is changing, and I think we're trying to move in a different direction. And when we're together, sharing personally where you want to be, having a vote where you,
right.
It's not secret ballot type of thing.
Well, now how do you deal with dissent in that sort of that kind of realm?
That's one of the things you would think by opening it up that the hope is that you can work on those things together. Sometimes by making that more open and taking away the secret part of it, folks just don't share their dissent until maybe in the parking lot later. So there's that whole issue of can we be honest with each other and work through and not be afraid to share what our point of view is and work through that. So part of the shift might be from instead of focusing everything on one meeting to spreading this out. If anything, it gives us more practice for how to do it. But just getting used to that and getting used to being in conversation with one another and not sitting and waiting for a vote, and then we'll decide it that way, and that'll be the because there's no communication really with that.
Yeah, we have experienced that ourselves. How about you guys?
Well, what I can say is we have been experiencing, at least I've been seeing more and more in settings where we're using the traditional U.S. Democratic vote mode, one person, one vote, and private. Where we're ending up with really divisive votes, where something it would have carried at 2/3, but it's 64%.
Gotcha.
Or we're seeing votes that are 49 to 48.
Right.
And I mean, that's representative of our whole societal issues at the moment, and so they're manifesting in congregational life as well. And one of the things that we're seeing in Mennonite churches where that process is used is increased, levels of unhealth,
right,
and also splitting congregations very rapidly. My home congregation, which is not part of this conference, split twice in 18 months over voting procedures.
Twice in 18 months?
Twice in 18 months.
Wow, you guys used to make fun of the Baptist over stuff like that. Yeah. Now you've got us beat.
Oh, I think we can do it well.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So with the strong congregational autonomy, that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
And depending on how the congregational processes move and how the conference is involved or not involved, the conference can't solve it, but
right.
And in my home church's case, this is a different conference. The conference's involvement. They didn't involve them early enough in the process for them to be at all helpful.
Okay.
We're moving towards trying to do a little bit more public consensus work and trying to hear in more external processes and having votes that are based on affirmation of movement rather than on single process, and that's really complicated.
Oh, it's really, yeah. So what you're trying to move the vote more towards, okay, this is what we're doing, and this seems to be, being what we're called to do. Let's affirm that this is what we're doing. Is that right interpretation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the move is that direction in conference level leadership.
Okay.
Congregations would be all over the place in their ability to do that. With new congregations, what I'm seeing is less voting, more conversation, and higher levels of decision making, higher levels of trust put in congregational leadership teams that are a mix of pastoral and lay congregational leaders.
Okay.
And that the newer congregations are able to move more rapidly because more is invested in that leadership level.
Right.
And dissent then is managed by that team.
Right, okay.
You can converse with them, it's an addressing back and forth, but frequently the decisions are discussed, then processed in that team, and then they move it on.
Now, do you find that the new churches that you're helping to develop, do they kind of naturally migrate to that, or are you do you have it set up to make sure that they end up?
We don't have it set up for that, but it seems to be that's most of these groups are new, so they're the interesting thing is that the trust level for the leader has to be present.
Yeah.
The leadership has to be trusted, or they are trusted, otherwise people wouldn't be there. So they're able to let the leaders move and navigate. We have not established that as a policy, although we have moved that policy in more traditional congregations.
Okay.
I can say that there would be congregations we've worked with and we've said, this is probably a helpful way to keep you moving.
Okay.
It's tough. I mean, I don't like the idea of giving up a vote as someone who's sitting in the congregation. But it keeps congregations vibrant. It seems to be able to keep them moving. It also keeps leaders empowered enough so that they're actually making good decisions. And they're also forced to listen, not just take the cues from the vote.
Yeah. Someone once challenged me to just draw lots.
And some Mennonite churches are returning to that.
And just to see what would happen.
Yep.
Because that's just, wouldn't that be interesting?
Some Mennonite churches are returning to that in highly conflictual situations, which that would have been the practice in the past. And when they can't seem to quite move ahead, they're saying, let's go to the lot process to select our new leadership team, and we will just trust it. It works as good as anything right now, but...
Well, yeah, and then the argument is, you're leaving that up to chance. Yeah. We really need to work on our theology.
Well, that's a big piece. The whole trust issue is the...
That's the key, isn't it?
That is really... when you're going... We've been trying to do that, going to an affirmation process. But that's hard when you're dealing with a lot of history. And it really comes down to, do we trust each other?
Well, and really, in a dysfunctional system, the breakup of trust is how you control it.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea that people would trust one another is actually a threat, which we've encountered here, and every pastor that's been kind of part of a traditional community that's come in, that's exactly what the issue is. There's no trust at all because that's a threat. So it's kind of neat that the new churches are like, oh no, we don't want any of that. We don't.